Almost exactly 1 year ago, in December 2022, and it's now December 2023, I planted this garden. There were some plants already in it, but a lot of it was a blank canvas. And here you can see the plants that I did put in, but because it was December, most of them didn't have very much growth on them. And some of them, even though they were potted plants, the perennials, they were still underground. I mean, like the foliage on top had died off, so you can't really see much. One of the problems that I really wanted to solve with this garden was that there was a lot of ugly and visible fence. So I wanted some more structure, foliage, and some floral colour. But I'm only just coming back to this garden now to do another little project. So I can't show it to you in its full glory in the video, but you can see some of the structure that's developed, and I can show you some of the things that the customer sent me from throughout the year. So you'll be able to see some of the pictures of it in bloom that I'll show you later on. But the problem that I've been asked to solve, the customer sent me this picture, is this gap that is underneath this hazel tree and underneath this trachycarpus, the hardy palm that's here. I'm going to take you around quickly because this camera's not weather sealed, so I can't get it that wet. So this could have probably been, this Verbena bonariensis could have been given a Chelsea chop or something to make it a bit more squat in this area, or it could just be a bit lanky for this area, to be honest. That's my fault. But it's doing what we wanted it to do, which is just continuing to flower for a long time. It's now December the 7th, and there have been quite a few pretty hard frosts, so the fact that it's still flowering is quite incredible, really. And you can see the seed heads on this Rebecca. The birch that you can see, well, you can't really. You can see here, that's been good. And we've had quite a lot of what I wanted from the grasses was to form a nice sort of golden opening that flows in the wind, that sort of draws your eye out into where the main garden is. And what we're doing today is underneath this trachycarpus, it's quite shady, especially once you've got the canopy of this hazel when it's in leaf. I thought we were leaving it fairly open because there's the little hippo thing here that is quite a nice feature, and covering it with loads of foliage would obviously mean you can't see it, but want some more foliage there. So we have this Dryopteris wallachiana, the Jurassic Gold variety, a very reliable plant which is in the ivy family, Fatsia japonica, and some hydrangea limelight for some summer colour in the shady margins, so like where the sun's actually getting in, so that you've got something that at certain times of year is really something to look at. What he already had in here, this Mexican orange blossom, what do you call it? Slightly boring plant in my opinion, but it smells quite nice. It's Choicea ternata. So we've got some more of that just to make the hedge a little bit bigger, fill it out a bit further in, just because it'll help fill a gap. It's a cheap and reliable and very tough plant. So we got you can see some of the echinops further back there. There's some more, there's the hydrangeas, the hydrangea quercifolia that's a little bit further back as well. You can see some of the crocosmia that came through successfully, and some fennel. So sometimes people, when they're growing fennel, particularly if they've had it in there for a few years, will start to cut back the fennel so that it doesn't self-seed everywhere, because it can get a little bit prolific. Similarly along here, and I've come back at a really bad time of year, at the same time that I was here last year roughly, which means that you can't actually see that much. It looks like the echinacea did very, very well. Those seed heads will look really, really beautiful whenever there's any frosts. The trees look to have taken well, and the garden is just generally a lot fuller now than what it was before, with a lot more in the way of colour for long periods. In the spring particularly, a lot of the bulbs came up reliably, as they always do, and throughout the summer there were a number of different things that were in flower at lots of different times of year. Naturally, in all gardens there's a natural peak, so you can have something to look at the whole year, but I think that it's useful to design things so that you know that there is a time of year where you like it the most. So the best seasons for floral colour are generally late summer, early autumn, and then early through to late spring. And then throughout the summer you can still obviously have lots of things that will be in flower, but I tend to like to plan for those times of year because it gives you something to look forward to at both times of year. So you tend to have a little bit of a lull in slightly fewer flowers at, like in the middle of summer, before the late summer blooms come out in between when the early spring ones do. So like it's difficult, especially in one planting, to just try and plan for all of those things. But I think that the customer was really pleased with the way it came out, and the only bit that they wanted to work on was this bit that we're going to do today. And I would film it. I might film it on my phone because that'll mean that I don't have to get this camera soaking wet and break it. I had my phone on a time lapse, but I forgot my phone holder, so it ended up just falling off where I left it, propped up against that post. So I got very little of that. It was only me digging holes and putting plants in. So here's what we've got. The Diopteris Wallackiana, Jurassic Gold. There's some Matuca Struthopteris, which we were talking about before. This Fatsia japonica, which is part of the ivy family, with that palm shape to go with this, and give some glossy underfoliage. Cover up that little bit of the fence so that we don't just have foliage all the way up here and nothing down here, leaving it a bit bare. It will make it look a lot more lush, exotic, tropical feel to it. And then in here, it's twiggy at the moment, but that is Hydrangea paniculata limelight. So that will be like a limey white green during most of the summer. So that will add something. And behind it is the Gelder rose that was put in last time round, which also has these globular flower shape that go well with, they complement the flower shapes of the hydrangea, and you've got some hydrangeas over this side as well. So seeing as we've got a fairly symmetrical approach, there's no reason why you shouldn't be thinking about some sort of symmetry or repetition in there. Well, that's the way I think about it anyway. So the plants that went in today will fill out once the temperatures warm up in the spring, but here are some pictures of the added colour from throughout this year. I hope this gives you an idea of how this garden is developing, even if I haven't been able to show it you at its best. The reality is, however, that it will get better with each year and with further maintenance and editing. The trees will take many years to be at their best. The sustained effort and editing is what will allow you to really fall in love with your garden as it improves. We can't all have the budget of a TV garden makeover where they spend more than the value of the house on the garden. I'll come back here in the spring and summer next year to document its progress, so if you want to see that, then subscribe to the channel so you can see when I release that video. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.